You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy, the only show that understands that the new 52 is the best thing to happen to DC. I'm Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
So today, we've been hyping this up. We're going to talk about if we ran the new 52. In other words, Flashpoint happens and it leads to the hard reboot. Here's what we would do after the hard reboot. So let me share the screen for my expertly put together PowerPoints. That's my superpower. And yeah, pun intended. So if we ran the new 52, so we would do I believe we would do the standard rollout where we're like taking a year to like plan this out, and we're actually going to plan. And I believe, I know you're going to agree with me, every character gets a reboot. It's not like we keep Batman and Green Lantern's lore. No, everything is starting from square one.
Right. Well, see, first let's talk about why the New 52 basically was. When
Go ahead.
if anybody actually watched the DC documentary, they explain it point
I love that
blank.
thing.
It was like the Nolan Batman movies. They, skyrocketed Batman, and they wanted the comics to be successful. Before 2010, the comics were basically in the gutter, so WB did rush them, to have this reboot, and they felt like the comic line, pretty much, except for Batman and Green Lantern, those were the two characters that were at least, staying above water. But Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, all the other characters, Aquaman especially, they were not on a level that they should have been. And that's the thing about some of the creatives now, or, that talk about the new 52 or talk about pre-52, post-crisis, is that era of post-crisis was very much not a good era once you really look back and analyze certain things. And that's what was explained in the documentary too. So New 52 was needed. It just needed more planning. It needed the creatives to be more on board with it. It was like they were trying to hold on to post-crisis, and it's like, no, that's not the way to go. And
In fact, that's what necessitated this. Now, to be clear, I want to be clear. I like portions of post-crisis. We're not saying that era is completely irredeemable. We're saying as a whole, it needed some work.
yeah, I mean, the post-crisis fans, they cry about their era. New 52, we do have the fans, but they aren't as vocal, I would say. Um, but what about pre-crisis though? In order for post-crisis to happen, pre-crisis fans had to get their era taken away from them. So it's just like, each era has its fans, but for some reason, post-crisis is the more vocal and the more basically wanting to stay stagnant and be like the era. And yeah, we're not saying that post-crisis is bad. No, it did bring a lot of good,
Green
but
Lantern. I have to say that.
I mean, it elevated Batman. It gave us Kingdom Come. It gave us, those Elseworlds. It did give us, well, Kingdom Come. Let's say that, basically. I wouldn't say it was the best in turn for Superman because obviously every unique aspect of him is sort of had was stripped away, and they
Hmm.
basically have been trying to bring it back. They basically have been trying to bring pre-crisis back to Superman, and it's so difficult when you have writers that want to do the Clark Kent is who I am, Superman is what I can do, take away his refugee roots and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much the the issue with Post Crisis and Wonder Woman too. George Perez, he did elevate her character, but he did strip away like the more of her being scientific, like sciencey type sci-fi in a sense, sort of. And she was much younger, like
Hmm.
I don't know, about 5 or 10 years younger than the others, and not a founding member of the Justice League or something like that. So yeah, it's pros and cons to it, but New 52 was a necessity for DC to bring in modern readers and to basically just have this new generation of fans. And now we see, even present day, that DC doesn't have a stable fan base. Everyone is completely divided. Everyone has their own um, certain way of seeing the characters and putting in their head canons and fanons or whatever. And Twitter is like DC's worst enemy, but they are basically pandering to that audience that don't even support or buy the books, you know. So yeah,
Hmm.
so here we go with
Yeah.
trying to basically
Hmm.
see how we could have made New 52 better.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the problem, I do agree that the problem with the initiative was there wasn't enough planning, and they kept Batman and Green Lantern's lore when they told us it was a complete reboot. Like, the minute you try and justify to me that Blackest Night happened in the New 52 continuity, I'm like, wait. A
Yeah,
few of the characters that were very important to Blackest Night I are
don't
not in
exist.
continuity in the New 52. So how
52,
does
yeah.
that happen?
Yeah, it really was because so many creatives did not want to let go of certain things. And
Mhm.
especially with Death of Superman. I mean, that is one thing that honestly, as a story just in general, Death of Superman, I do not understand why that is so important. It was a I mean, it's been known to be a gimmick. It doesn't really elevate Superman as a character because you have
And if
so
anything,
many.
it did. If anything, it did damage to comic books because it established the whole that and the rebirth brought about the BS "no one ever dies" trope in comic books.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that people thought that he was going to be dead permanently, and it crashed the market. At that time,
Hmm.
comics, it it brought more of the darker. A lot of times, people want to say that Rebirth or DC was like this light and bright and everything like that, and how Superman is
Which it's
supposed to
not.
be this, yeah, this light, bright character. But Death of Superman was the catalyst basically of the dark. I want to, kill these characters, just all out brawls, nonsense type thing, So yeah, the
I mean,
revisionism.
that's that was the whole point of
Go ahead.
Infinite Crisis when Superboy Prime is like, "Hey, you guys are all dark now. This is not the way you're supposed to be."
And uh then Batman in one of the crisis whatever said that the only time Superman was important or something
Infinite.
was when he died. Yeah.
The only time
It's
you ever
like,
inspired anyone is when you were dead.
yeah. So I mean, it has become a joke, really. So
Hmm.
this story, Superman can die, quote unquote, but of course he can be revived by the gods or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but don't make it seem important now anymore, because Wonder Woman, even during Rebirth, this uh what was it, um Infinite Frontier or whatever, she died, came back, and
And
pretty
then,
much nobody
yeah,
cared. Like, she came back and
yeah.
she was like, "Hey, I'm
I
back,"
didn't see any
and
mourning. The funny part is, yeah, they did like a small little. They talked about they mourned for Wonder Woman at the end of Death Metal, and then no one ever like had anyone like go to like a grave or like a statue. There was nothing for her.
actually, I think that what they had was like, yeah, one page, and then Black
Mhm.
Canary had a concert or something at the end, and it was like that was it. Then
Oh my gosh.
when she came back, it was like, "Oh yeah, you're back from the dead. Like, how was it? How was death? Yeah, we've all been there, done that. So, it's good you're back." It's basically like she was in a vacation somewhere. It wasn't anything important. So yeah, stop killing characters. The nostalgia of all these characters. I mean, Dawn of DC right now is basically trying to force the post-crisis. Well, Rebirth and throughout this whole time has tried to implement, bring back the post-crisis everything. And with Death Metal, they had the everything is canon, uh, that whole mantra thing too. But the more they implement post crisis, the more you see on Twitter, they want controversy. They want to talk about things, and it's boring to them now. You
Hmm.
want it post crisis back, you have it partially back. Now that you have it, you're bored with it. And
It's
that's the reason why they had to reboot in the first place.
yeah, and the problem with it, though, I sympathize a little bit because there's this narrative going around that if DC reboots, then all these stories don't matter anymore. And I'm like, well, they do. You can still go back and read them. They
You
still
can go back
exist.
and read them.
It's not like they take the comics and burn them.
Right, you can go back and read them. You you bought them. You bought the books. They. It's not like if DC
But
says
again,
that they aren't canon, that your books that you bought are going to like disappear, magically disappear.
once
That's
again,
not
Britt,
what's gonna happen.
remember, we're dealing with people that don't, majority don't buy the comics.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you see on Twitter that they openly say they are waiting for the pirating sites to upload, or that sometimes you see someone post a panel from, and it has the pirate site tagline on there. It's like you're just openly um, doing this, or it's like complete silence, crickets on Twitter until they have uploaded it. So you know that these people aren't reading it. And then it's some creators are saying like, uh, well, the sales charts that they have now, that it's not reliable. Well, it's not, because 2020, DC changed distributors, so it's not the Comic-Con is not that anymore. So you don't really have a very good source of sales. But if you notice in Dawn of DC, a lot of these books are just minis, because these characters can't maintain ongoings anymore. So they have to have these 6-issue miniseries to then extend it to 12. Then maybe it can extend to an ongoing. But they have to have a set number of issues now. And
Which
only. Hmm.
that's interesting you bring that up because I was watching a YouTube video by my friend Wes from Thinking Critical, and he brought up that he had heard that when Zaslav was taking over Warner Brothers Discovery, one of his people did go to the comics division and asked to get a sales report for like all of DC in its existence. So what I think probably happened with that, going off of that information, was the person looked at the sales reports and said, okay, so you're miniseries are probably selling better than your ongoing. So just do these as short arcs. And then maybe if the sales go up, then you can start doing more ongoing stuff. But mostly, I agree with you. A lot of creators like Joshua Williamson posted, "Oh yeah, now we're starting this arc," and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you have your core characters. Batman, he can sustain Elseworlds. He can, I mean, what is it? I think Batman is now 138, 30, 39. But Superman had to get a new number one. He couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
Even with Batman changing writers, his ongoing can still maintain to keep going
Mm-hmm.
from the start of Rebirth. But Superman has had two number ones with Bendis and now Williamson. Wonder Woman, well, they continued on until she
Yeah.
definitely needed a new number one, like definitely.
And what's
Um,
funny is that when you look at the numbering of these new issues, they have like, okay, so Superman number one, legacy number, blah, blah, blah.
right. I mean, that's really not gonna collect very. It it throws off the collection, and I think that even the trades, well, trades really began to flop with Convergence
Mm-hmm.
because at that time again you're catering to the post crisis, you know, those who want it, and they didn't show up. So
Mm-hmm.
Convergence was a flop. You have, and then you bring back New 52 with DCU, and that was a flop because you changed the whole direction of everything and just ruined it. Then you have Rebirth, and Rebirth was the supposed to be like the gold mine of, you know, synergy between DCEU too. But again, the people who are online, just like that meme that's going around for DC, you have people online, promoting the movies or promoting anything like that or the books, but then actually going out to support it is crickets, is no one, So that is
Yeah,
where
I've
the
seen those memes
position,
too.
yeah. So
And
that's the
and again,
position
yeah,
that
yeah, go
DC is.
ahead. Yeah, and the issue is that it's now considered like simplistic, overly simplistic to consider the sales of these books now. Now they only want if a book is popular. But speaking of that DC documentary, Britt, there was this fantastic thing that someone brought up that was brought up in there. I think it was Mike Carlin. He said, I had someone come up to me going, "How could you kill Superman?" And he goes, "I didn't kill Superman. You did. If you didn't buy the book, what do you expect? You killed If you don't tend to a plant, we're gonna prune it." And that's why I think sales should be considered because, first off, DC is a business. It should act like it. A business is concerned with sales. Can you have a book that has a critical reception but bad sales? Absolutely. You have the same thing in movies. But if you want a book to continue, buy the freaking book. It shouldn't be that hard to understand. It's crazy. And Britt, if you're there, you are muted or I can't hear you. Oh, okay. So Britt has to come back. But the point is, what I'm saying is, with the problem with not considering the sales argument is that, guess what? That is what DC is majorly supposed to be with. And there's Britt again. Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. You went out
All right.
for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I said is that I love how it's considered like simplistic to consider the sales for these books now. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense for two reasons. Number one, DC is a business. It should act like it. A business's primary focus is to make money. Second off, can you have a book that's doing well critically but doing badly commercially? Yeah, you have the same thing in movies. But if you want a book to continue, if you're enjoying a book and you want to continue, encourage people to buy the book. This should not be complicated. It really shouldn't.
Right. No, I mean, it shouldn't be, but that is what I mean. Okay, I would say that comic books is not okay within the economy right now. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't really afford the luxury as prices are going up with, life
Mm-hmm.
things in general. So with
Yeah.
comics, they are raising the price. You have writers who want, well, writers sometimes aren't even getting paid what they are worth anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
their pay isn't where it should be, and it's starting to become expensive. I think DC actually, it was said that they have like cheaper paper or something like
That
that.
was Marvel, actually.
It was
And maybe DC as well, but primarily that's the complaint I hear about Marvel books.
Yeah, so and some of the writers, you don't see many big time writers anymore. They are more so gravitating towards creator own type um things now. So
Mm-hmm.
you have like these, not lower writers, I wouldn't say that, but it's just cheap. Well, they have called them cheaper writers, cheaper, you know um distribution, the material to print the books. But even with the books that they have, if you're not having the fans, quote unquote, buy them, you're not getting your profit, even when you do reduce the price on certain things. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
with all that said,
Yeah.
how we would roll all this out, if
Mm-hmm.
New 52 would have been, I would say, give it a year of planning, yes, but maybe push it even to 2 years within like 2009, and then work your way to 2010 to
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
really just nail down that, um make sure that the writers and the editors are very much on the same level, that they agree on everything. And that was the problem with New 52, was that nobody wanted to agree. And when you don't have that, basically your team is already fumbling, you know. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we
Yeah.
have mhm,
No, I was gonna say the issue is that, yeah, you have to tell these writers, yeah, guess what? This is the direction it's going, because sales are not at the point where we could focus on all this nostalgia stuff. If sales were there, we would not be rebooting. So get with the program.
yeah. Um I mean, like Dan Jardins, he was so. I mean, he let it be known basically throughout New 52. Some he didn't like the suit. I mean, we've already discussed this, of liking
Mm-hmm.
Superman's suit and modernizing him and doing away with the trunks. I mean, now that so many characters are getting new suits, and yet you may think that the trunks do not make Superman who he is. It's kind of, yeah, it's recognizable, but really the Seagull is more recognizable than the trunks. So, as
Yeah.
long as he has the S, that's that is what matters. Even the spit curl. The spit curl matters
Mm-hmm.
more than the trunks. Um,
Exactly. Because he's
you know,
had he's had both without the trunks, and he's been fine.
right. So, with this, what we will do with the going back to the rollout, in, like I said, 2009, 2010, or whatever, you have your Comic Cons. Use those as like the big reveal. Not that you're gonna start right away, but we're going to have this coming up. So basically, you're preparing your audience, you're preparing your writers and creatives to like, are you going to be on board with this? If not, hey, I mean, this is something that we have to do. If you're not, then we're laying it all out that this is what we're going to do. Sometimes you can have a surprise, sometimes you can't. Um, so yeah, so here we go with I say SDCC before it became what it is now, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
um, is is the overall basically announcement that we are going to reboot. Then you may have a character reveal or like go ahead and say it like the design. I
Yeah, I was
think
about to
Jim
say the
Lee
costume
had
design code work.
yeah. Um Jim Lee had the costume designs for New 52. So you start with that. Start with showing your audience that. And you can get a little feedback, it all depends. But at the same time, don't really take the word of the feedback because online they love to hate everything. So you are gonna have that more loud or negative feedback. Then we go to the smaller cons, I would say, to give the more obscure characters a chance, to introduce
True.
them. Then NYCC, you have another big character or, bigger point. And
Hmm.
so I think that's how the rollout could have been. Just a little handheld your audience and your creatives into it.
I agree. Next, so we get to year one. So what's our first year look like?
Okay, so our first year are specials like how New 52 had the zero issues. You do
Hmm.
have the zero issue special issues given the origin. Like go ahead and just do, crash the rocket crash, um the Kents, introducing the supporting cast and everything. Just get it all up to speed so you don't have to really just go into the main comic book series retelling it. That here's your special one shot origin story for all your main core Justice Leaguers. So we have
Hmm.
Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Aquaman, Green Lantern. I don't know which Green Lantern. I would say Hal.
I
Um,
was about to say stick with Hal for this because I mean you could use it to highlight Kyle or John, but I would say stick with Hal to kind of that would be another way of easing the audience in because the audience when they think of a Green Lantern they think of Hal, particularly around this time period.
right. Okay. So we have Hal Jordan as Green Lantern. You have Black Canary, Green Arrow, Vixen, Flash, Zatanna, and the Hawks. I think that is. I think um that is pretty much a well balanced
Mhm.
Justice League, because normally they'll have just Wonder Woman on the league, and I think that's pretty much what turned some people off. Why have just one woman on the team? You can have more than one equal, um, or even just start with rotating. If the heroes are already established and they are just now basically just forming the team, they can have a rotating team even starting within their year one. I think that
That's
will
true.
work.
That could work. And yeah, I do like that's a solid team up. Plus, it's pretty much the cartoon team too. So that way you also bring in that fan base. So next, what are we doing for the old Kryptonian?
Okay, so with the Superman solos, we have Superman, the regular book, and these are smaller scale um, Clark stories. And what the one thing that I just can't stand is trying to keep him in Metropolis. That can be his
Hmm.
home base. It can be, and it is. But he needs to travel even as Clark Kent. he needs to be a world correspondent or something like that to really get to know the world. It's not just Superman, it is Clark. And as I see him as a well balanced, one person, the personality and everything is just one person. He needs to travel just as Superman has to travel. Superman travels air, Clark, he does, hop on a plane actually. He does ride the bus or something like that. But he is seeing the world to from the ground. And that is something that is missing because all you have with Clark Kent even now is the Daily Planet, but you don't see him actually, you know, doing anything more, writing puff pieces or just Metropolis. Like right now, they are trying to make Metropolis more like Gotham in a sense of Metropolis having like this character all by itself or whatever, but it doesn't, it feels so, it can be small scale, but also larger. And that's something that's missing from the Superman books now is that the Metropolis isn't that big. And especially with his restrictive supporting cast too. So yeah, so that's with the Superman book. Action Comics is bigger scale and he's more galactic. Action Comics should be a lot more action in it, So yeah, he's not
Yeah.
still doing the same Metropolis Daily Planet stuff in Action Comics. He's actually doing more galactical type traveling and learning.
Plus, here's the thing: you don't even have to do Metropolis because remember he formed that online news place with Cat. You could do that. Plus, that works more if we want to put him more as the world correspondent and world traveler because,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
he can work from wherever he is.
Exactly. Be a freelance writer. That is something that I really think that for modern Superman, he can still be the reporter, but he can be more modern day of, as a blogger or something like that. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. So, and I agree with all this because really my issue with the whole Superman Action Comics divide is that they feel like ultimately the same book. I mean, they're sort of changing that with Action because Action now in Dawn of DC is more like an anthology book of what are the super family in general doing. So it still has Superman stories in there, but we also have like maybe a John story, a Connor story, a Kara story and such. So I like how they're trying to like differentiate the two, but I like this one more of Action Comics being the more, for lack of a better term, Michael Bay style book where there's like action on every page.
Right, right.
That's awesome. Now, what are we doing about our favorite Amazon?
So Wonder Woman, okay, the thing about Wonder Woman is that her books don't sell as much as they should. So
Mm-hmm.
she's only been able to have just one solo book. But I think if you do it right, if she would have had like a movie within the time of 2010 or something like that, or just just a bit more promotion, from DC even in post crisis, just give her more respect and a better creative team. She could maintain two books. So say if she did have two books, we have the Wonder Woman solo, which is more ambassador um Diana. She
Mm-hmm.
is an and also a student because I think that Diana with especially with Julia, Diana has an accent and she doesn't actually know English too well. So, and in order for her to I guess have the identity of Diana Prince more evolved, that she went to college. I
Mm-hmm.
would have loved to see her actually being a student in college.
That would be great.
And
Well, plus, if we're going off of the new 52 age scale, she was 23 at this point, so that 100% worked.
Right. She came at age 18. So this is her year
Hmm.
one. So yeah, she entered college.
Hmm.
And she was also an assistant professor for Julia that she was helping her, and then she would go to get a job at the embassy to become an ambassador. So that is more bringing, I guess, even with the Diana Prince identity, she was exploring the world too. That with her college, going to college, she was doing intern work. She was, you know, doing. I think it was Wonder Woman 170, when A Day in a Life, and you can see her going, um, doing charity work, seeing her take care of children and stuff like that. That can be Diana Prince, but also Wonder Woman too, within that. Then to
Yeah.
say, uh-huh.
I was gonna say, and mean to cut you off, but as much as I love what Brian Azzarello did with Wonder Woman in terms of the new 52, and even David and Meredith Finch, the one thing I felt was missing from the new 52 Wonder Woman, particularly when I read pre-crisis, pre-crisis, post-crisis, is the whole ambassador, because New 52 did great with the Wonder Woman part, but they didn't focus too much on the Diana part. And I feel like this is a great way to do that.
Right. So now we have her second book, which is a
Mhm.
sensation or sensational comics, and this is more of the
Mhm.
Amazons and mythical adventures. So with her book within the New 52, it was more mythical. It was with the Amazons, but it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't Diana Prince. So now we go to, with this book, you can go with the more mythical Amazon history and everything like that. And yeah, this will be a more balanced of really fleshing out the Amazons more. And if you want to put the gods in there, I don't, like I said, I'm always in between. I can go from the clay origin, or I can go to the Zeus daddy type thing, that whole drama. If you want them in whichever origin you choose, this is the book for it.
Yeah, personally, I think I said this on a stream with a buddy of mine, is that I think that for how often she interacts with the Greek gods and how the family dynamic always plays into the with the Greek gods, I think the daughter of Zeus works best for the situations they keep putting her in relation to the Greek gods.
Yeah, I mean, the I think that um they have been trying to give her a father probably since the end of post crisis or whatever, or alluded to it. So I don't think they are going to go back really truly to the clay origin, unless, I don't know, a whole nother reboot and someone else overtakes, or maybe the Guns uh movie verse or whatever has her with the clay origin, then they will go back to that. But yeah, but with her interacting more with them, with Zeus, I think it's been 10 years, right, of her being the daughter of Zeus
Mhm.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might as well kind of stick with it a little bit more. They don't, because it's such a controversial thing, you don't have it as like the plot point, like a big thing. But at the same time, just talk about it a little bit, and then that's it. Just go on from there. So yeah.
Yeah. So the Dark Knight.
All right. So with Batman solo, Batman and Robin. I mean, he they want to have him as a loner, but he never has been. He's always had Robin. So you start
Mhm.
with Grayson. So
Mhm.
so the start of Batman is basically his year one. Um, oh, and I also forgot to say within these specials, you also kind of tell the ages of the leaguers.
Good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they are basically ranging from their 20s to early 20s to early 30s. And Batman is pretty much
Mhm.
the oldest of being in his early 30s. So
Mhm.
he has had more time, even, but I can see him older than Clark. So he has been Batman for a little while longer. So now he has Dick Grayson as his Robin. So you have the Batman book for Batman and Robin adventures. Now the
Mhm.
Detective Comics comic.
Yeah. And
The,
in full disclosure, hang on, I meant to put Detective Comics here. I just want to bring that up.
oh,
Yeah,
um,
that was an error on my part. It's all good.
yeah. So this is where he can be solo. He doesn't have to have Robin with him, but this is more of Bruce being a detective, and he goes
Mhm.
more into the deeper, darker aspects of Gotham.
Mhm.
And
That works. I like
bec-
that.
because Gotham, it does feel like a bigger setting than any other place within DC. It's just a whole character all by itself. So this is very much a big playground for Bruce. And yeah, you can have the GC PD. You can bring out more of the darker type villains and everything like that. And yeah, that is something that, well, I know within Rebirth they did have it as a family book, but um I don't see these secondary books also, Action Comics, Sensational or Sensation Comics, and Detective, can be also the introductions to the secondary characters too.
Yeah.
Um so with Detective Comics, you have Gordon and his daughter Barbara, and you introduce her a little bit too within this book too, and that trickles down to later years of more fleshing out her character. So that's what Detective Comics is.
That works for me. Lanterns. Okay, so I like the idea of the anthology. What would also be cool is to add in another anthology. You could just call it Lanterns. And what this could do, what you could tell with this, is like short. It's like stories about the different about characters in the different cores. Like you could do Atrocitus. Carol Ferris could get a story in this anthology book. Larfleeze. In other words, you also highlight the other Lantern cores because at this point you have the Jeff Johns run that established all those cores.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that would be probably a secondary book, or if you
Yeah.
want to just have
Mm-hmm.
the Green Lanterns, but then you have like the Lanterns book that, yeah, that established
Mm-hmm.
um all the other corps, like you said. That would be wonderful. And I think this is what DC was missing, is that they tried so hard to, like I said, keep certain things. You have to rely on prior knowledge to the characters. Um, but like I said, that's why we have our specials, is because yeah, it is given a fast recap of everything, but still a new, without all the baggage and everything. So yeah, you reintroduce the corpse and all of that, give them their origins, or something like that. Just so if you do know these characters, you want to also, for a new reader, to feel like they are new characters too.
Yeah, and plus what you could do is that when you get, if you want to do like Blackest Night or Sinestro Core War, any of those big Green Lantern things, you could tell them maybe in a new way because you have a new continuity. And this is my problem with them keeping all those continuities because everyone loved all those events. Yeah, you could still do them again, but you could do them in new ways because you have this new continuity. You have different character dynamics, like Superman and Wonder Woman with the whole blue and Star Sapphire lanterns because of Blackest Night. Because my biggest issue with Blackest Night is they didn't give Superman a blue lantern ring; they gave it to Flash instead. And I'm like, his S means hope. What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, that was my issue. So then we get to some other characters, which I like all these other solos because if the way I see it, every Justice Leaguer should get a solo book.
Yeah, I mean, some of them can't, like we said, they can't sustain an ongoing, but you can at least try, especially with the main core Justice Leaguers. If you have the specials, I think people would, pick up their solos. So you have Aquaman, you have Black Canary, you have Green Lantern, Vixen, Flash, Zatanna, and the Hawks. Zatanna's will introduce Justice League Dark, as she is a founder. You are expanding slowly, step by step, expanding their other teams that they've had. Oh, and another thing is Batman had Batman and the Outsiders too. That's another thing that
Yeah.
I forgot to add. But he introduces within Detective Comics, though those characters too are introduced for Batman and the Outsiders. Then the Hawks, I think of them as a unit.
Yeah.
Because they have been a unit, within their introduction. Except I think the Golden Age, it was just Hawkman for a while,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
they were a pair. And I do like the story. I haven't followed it, but I do know the summary of them being immortal lovers and going through like since the Egyptian times or whatever. So that would be very good to have stories set within, the timeline of Egyptian time on to the present, and have that whole thing. And I know that their continuity already and origin already is mixed up, so you can have fun with that of putting all their past lives into a one whole thing to acknowledge that this is very messy, but we're going to make it work.
True. By the way, if you want a really good Hawkman, which includes Hawkgirl too, it's because they're set. Read the Jeff Johns Hawkman run from pre-New 52. It's really solid. So,
Oh, cool.
next
Will do.
year 2.
Okay, so year 2 gives a slight time skip. I think we can say about 2 years or so, but within that you do acknowledge that the Justice Leaguers are basically like coming together and everything like that, that they are establishing their set, partnerships, who's, closer to who or whatever like that. So within that, like I said, with Zatanna's solo book, we are introducing the Justice League Dark. So you have Deadman John Constantine, the Changing Man, and Madame Xanadu. I have no idea how to say her name.
It changes, but I just go with Xanadu.
Yeah. So you have that team. Then we have the League of Women. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
like I said,
this I did not see coming when you sent me the show notes, but I could totally see this.
This is, like I said, we had female books. They did try to do that, but your core female representation was just Diana. And she is the representation, yes, but you needed more. So with the ladies of the Justice League, you have a book with them, and basically it's an anthology of different team ups. You have Diana with Vixen, Diana with Zatanna, Zatanna with Vixen. These mix and match basically, and and then it's one story where they all come together. You know, and that is something that I think to gain more female readers too, that will entice, you know, that set, that demographic.
And fun fact, they actually, I'm looking through an old Justice League like lore book I have, and I believe there was a team, I think it was like called Justice League Amazon or something like that, that was all female characters.
Really, I mean that would have been very good to have, to
It's
establish
really cool.
these strong, female characters. They aren't catty, and I think that because of the Justice League show, having only two women on the team with Wonder Woman and Hawk Girl, and how they weren't friends. It was
Hmm.
very catty like, and that wasn't good representation. So then you had, I think, Young Justice did kind of
Hmm.
bring this up of think Dinah and Hawk Girl was on the Justice
They were.
League,
They were.
and okay, and they brought up saying, we need more women on the team, and it was true. And then you go back to the 2006 GLA, and that had, you know, that pretty much was the inspiration for this, because that was a broad cast of the Justice Leaguers. I know that they have been established, but you can still establish them. Just go ahead and establish the league, especially the threat that they go through. I think Darkseid is um a good big threat, because you can go expand even from Darkseid. I think they do have villains that are even more powerful than Darkseid. So yeah, he can be the first, big villain that the whole league comes about within their year one, year two, or whatever. And then that is how you establish the extensions.
Now the question is, let me ask you this: would you put Cyborg on the Justice League?
No, I did like him on the team as like the more tech, but the more I read, and the more I do see him more on the Teen Titans, where he was first established. Yeah, but he was still, I would say, once the Teen Titans are established, his main goal was being on the Justice League, so you can still incorporate that, within the Justice League too. So you can basically have your cake and eat it too with Cyborg.
Yeah, what we said once is that he could be more like a liaison between the Titans and the Justice League. By the way,
Right.
here is the picture of the Justice League Amazons, by the way. So
Oh,
that was essentially a league lineup that was all female. So I see what you're going with there. That works. You can even make that a book.
yeah. See, hire me, DC. I can, do
Yeah,
this all
well,
day.
hire us, DC, and we'll easily turn your company around. We may piss off some people, but we'll turn your company around. So next up,
Right.
we've got World's Finest. Of course, we have to have a World's Finest book.
Right, because they've had it since the Golden Age, Um, it is Superman and Batman that has to be there. They are the ones that do establish a partnership or rivalry, frenemies type thing from first meeting. So yeah, and we all know what the World Finest is. So no need for too much explanation. But yeah, they meet. Um, I would say that they do meet Superman in Superman's book, year
Mm-hmm.
one, and he
That
is
could work.
in the Jeans and T.
Mm-hmm.
Batman
I
is
love that
more in
costume so
his
much.
Batman is in more of a like homemade type, like the Reeve Batman, Patterson type, that kind of
Or
suit.
there was this suit. Hang on, I'll get the book because they did this event in the new 52 called Zero Year for Batman, which was basically what was Batman doing in his intro year. And here was the suit for the year. It was basically a 0 year event. It was the origin of Batman, essentially.
Oh,
So
so
it's
they
got
use
like the
with
purple
the
gloves and
purple
stuff.
gloves. Yeah,
Yeah.
that can work too. And it will be kind of funny because, Clark, with how I picture him, would probably talk about the purple gloves. So, it will be a
You'd be
little
like, it's
banter
not that
between them.
stealthy, Bruce.
Right. Um, so yeah, so we have the world's finest established.
Then we've got, and the '90s fan of me was like, yes, Robin, a miniseries.
So with Robin Grayson, he is basically within his he becomes Robin when he's 12. So
Mm-hmm.
say this is him now, I would say, since we've done the time skip, um he's 12, he's probably 15, 16. So we give him that. Um he's now establishing himself. He wants to become a solo hero, and he's very much inspired by the Justice League. He's met Superman, and this is where he gets his inspiration to become Nightwing too. So he
Mm-hmm.
is starting to build up with this. So you have him with a mini or a maxi. You can have it 12 issues, 6 issues, um, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
you are
That works.
still establishing him wanting to have a group of supers that are his age, around his same age. So now he is going about and looking for these teenage supers that he can hang out with and, create his own team.
That works. Would you, when he turns to Nightwing, would you have the blue logo or the red logo that he had in the new 52?
Honestly, you can use both. It depends.
Mm-hmm.
If it's summer, have red. If it's winter, have blue. That's pretty much how I'm thinking.
That's an option. That's a legitimate option. He has like a red suit for like more like hot environments. That could possibly work.
Yeah.
So then we get to year 3. Shazam!
So Billy, his age confuses me sometimes. Sometimes they say he's a
Mm-hmm.
10-year-old, sometimes they say he's 13, so that's why he's pretty much in year 3 of like the Justice League is basically in their 5th year.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is kind of so I would say that his age is 13, 14, and then he becomes Shazam, and the whole
Mm-hmm.
family, is established, and that is just the set. He's not on the Justice League yet. Um, we'll wait a little bit until he's like maybe 18 then.
Mm-hmm.
But he's or 17, because he still has this. You still have to have Billy in his puberty type, you know, ways about himself, even as with these Shazam persona.
Yeah, and if we wanted to go with like a conflict with the Greek gods down the line, you can use the Wonder Woman book and this to seed that because of how like entwined in Greek myth these characters are.
Right.
So moving on. Now this one I gotta ask. So if we're going to do a Supergirl, so the intro for Supergirl, would you want to do like a repeat of the Superman Batman story where she shows up, gets captured by Darkseid, and then the Trinity and Big Barda have to invade Apocalypse?
That is sort of, but right now that group hasn't really been established because she does
Mhm.
go live with the Amazons within that
Okay, that
time
works.
too.
Hmm.
So I did when I was you know, typing this out, I was thinking of that story, but then I was like, no, she has to be with the Amazons. But that comes later once the established Diana's more established, close with Clark and everything like that. So no, she just meets her cousin. She is solo for a minute, trying to have her own secret identity of um Kara Danvers, and she is kind of lost, you know. So that's established there, and then within a year or two, she will go to the Amazons and be trained and everything like that.
Plus, here's the fun part. So when she goes to the Amazons and trains, you can use that to seed the whole Clark and Diana thing, and you can have like Kara and Donna Troy constantly like teasing the two about their obvious mutual attraction to a certain point where Clark goes, "Shut up, Kara."
Right.
Like she annoys him about it because
Yeah.
that's the other thing
Like, you're so
that I enjoy about
obvious.
your fix. Yeah. That that's one of the things I enjoy about your fix is when Donna shows up and starts teasing Diana about her obvious attraction to Clark.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little sister, you know, for Diana. So Donna, it's just so obvious that anybody would tease them already, but to have your little sister, or with Kara, she's supposed to be older than Clark, but
Hmm.
your basically little but
Older.
big cousin, older cousin is
Hmm.
um teasing you too. That is just
Yeah.
something that makes them more quote unquote human too. They might be
Yeah.
superheroes, but they still have that um relationship where they do have, teasing my cousin or my older sister.
Yeah. Now, okay, so let me ask you this. If we're teasing the whole Clark and Diana thing, how does Lois factor into this, if at all?
So with the supporting cast, Lois, she's basically the same. It would just be that she's not with a guy named Jonathan. Even that is just weird.
Hmm.
When they did that in the 52, is it would be the Jeb Friedman guy.
Hmm.
He was her friend when they were younger and stuff. So yeah, she would basically be in a relationship with him, or on and off thing, or she would have had like a past with Bruce or with Lex. She's already It's already established that she's a little bit older than Clark. So yeah, so she is basically focused on her career. She is just not so much as a friend, but a rival. But there's no, um,
Animosity.
romantic. Well,
Yeah,
no,
and that
she
too.
she she does have animosity for Clark. Definitely. You go back to the Golden
Oh,
Age, she
okay, yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
stand. Yeah, she going back to the Golden Age, she couldn't stand Clark. So yeah, so that would be established that she can't
And
stand
maybe
him.
even toward Diana because she knows that Diana has Superman's eye.
Right. So you have that, and even with Steve, I would have Steve Trevor older, um, like how Perez introduced him, and or he can be a little bit younger, but he is in a relationship with Etta.
Yes, and here's my idea for what to do with Steve. This is one of the greatest things I think DC should do. So during the new 52 rollout, they had this book called Men at War. And what that was basically like a war story thing where you had like Easy Company essentially, but in modern war. And you could kind of explore what do like military operations look like in a world where you have superheroes. So what I figured you could do, take him, Rick Flag, uh Sergeant Rock, and any of the like regular Joe Schmo soldiers in the DCU, put them on like a team, have them do like special ops stuff, so you could like explore like that type of like covert operations, but in a world where you have a dude that gets powers from the sun. I think that'd be actually really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what they did with him when they made him the liaison, but the way he was written, in a sense of he wanted
He was a
control of the
stalker.
Justice League. Yeah.
Because yeah, that the new 52 did not do him or Lois Lane any favors.
Right. He used that being the liaison as like having control over Diana. And no, that's just not what he should do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
he can be in the military or whatever, and he can have the missions and stuff as, military missions, those with Waller. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that whole conflict with her, or even with having Waller as his, not so much as like a love interest, but some type of tension there between them, even that could work. Something within the government type,
Mm-hmm.
that will work for him. But at the same time, he still has Etta too. So, and I think they were also with Checkmate. So
Yeah.
yeah, that whole thing goes with that.
What you could also do that'd be hilarious. You could have him and Waller have like a rivalry, like they're tracking. Like, is the Suicide Squad get more successful operations, or do like Steve's team, and they have like these tallies going on. You're like, well, my team's more effective. No, my team is. You can get kind of play off that rivalry
Yeah,
between
yeah,
it would be like a professional rivalry.
yeah.
And this would be the one. This would be the way you make Steve Trevor work useful, because pretty much he is one of the most redundant. He's useless only in Diana's area now, because she's fighting super powered beings and stuff. What is he gonna do?
He's
Shoot them with
basically
regular
just
rounds? I'm like, what are you gonna do?
right. When I see that, like when they try to have him on covers and he just has a pistol in his hand, I'm like,
I'm
what
like,
is he
yeah,
really
that's
gonna
not
do?
gonna work, brother. She's going up against, like, let's say Ares. Yeah, that's not gonna work, brother.
Right.
It's annoying. So with Batgirl, first off, I love the idea of Batgirl having her own thing, because she's one of my favorite Bat Family characters. Now, the question is, now, would you have her eventually become Oracle, or would you have her stay as Batgirl?
I would have her as Oracle eventually, but
Mm-hmm.
here when I was doing the research, and she was a congresswoman. She was,
Oh, that works.
she was very successful. I don't know, well, I do know why they de-aged her to be with Grayson, but I mean, even now, she doesn't have that much of a big role. It's like her role is being reduced. And that's the one thing too that's so double standard, that fans will talk about Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple and say that Diana is going to be reduced or whatever. But when we see in their New 52 book, she was like the main
She's
fighter.
not. She was
She
kicking
stood on her
Zod's
own.
ass.
Right. But when you look at Black Canary and Green Arrow, Black Canary is now a supporting character for Green Arrow. You see Barbara.
She shouldn't be.
She is right. She is a supporting character now for Nightwing's book. She isn't even much of Oracle, but she's a background character now. She's not even on Bursts of Prey, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really stupid. The way I see it, there is no Birds of Prey without Barbara Gordon. There is none.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
right. So like I said, there is very much a double standard of couples that they, even big Barda with Mr. Miracle, she wasn't an equal character. She read more like a supporting character as just a love interest. Diana has never been just a love interest. Even with Kingdom Come, she was very much an equal. She was, Clark's moral compass. It was more of a Superman story, within his point of view, but it was also within Norman's point of view too. But she was
Mhm.
still a main character and pretty much was forced as, to be equal. Um,
Well, plus also here's the thing: when you factor into Kingdom Come, arguably she is the most important character of Kingdom Come because she's the one who comes to Superman and says, "Dude, you need to stop holding this against humanity. You need to come and fix this, or something really bad is going to happen."
right. A lot of times the love interest is not going to get, she's going to sit there and cry. She's going to be hanging off the main character's shoulder, or she's going to just be waiting, instead of really taking on any action. And that's the thing, even with Lois too. It's like they want to prop her up as an equal character, but she's not. She's just a love interest. And honestly, with within the books, she hasn't had a big role. She is very limited,
Mm-mm.
especially with trying to make her the EIC of the Daily
Yeah.
Planet. They gave Perry a heart attack for her to become that. He is now running for mayor or something like that, but still her role is limited. It even says it is that she has a limited role now, and it's frustrating to her. So with you putting her in a limited role, and that's where Clark's limitation comes from too, because he's stuck with the Daily
Mhm.
Planet.
Yeah, my whole thing is that, and I put this out on Twitter. I'm like, the problem with Lois Lane is that to make her relevant, they keep trying to turn her into other characters, such as turning her into Perry, like you said, or when I think it was like a John story or something like that. Somehow she got and operated the Hellbat armor. At that point, I checked out because I'm like, no, that doesn't make any freaking sense whatsoever. That's just me. But still, yeah, it doesn't really the and again, the problem with it is that, yeah, could Lois be a good character? Yeah, absolutely. But when you factor in the fact that they have to denigrate other characters to prop her up, that doesn't work.
Right, because you lose the other characters, and like you said, it doesn't work because it doesn't fit her, and no one is interested. She's had solos, she's had, even within New 52, they gave her a one shot and it sold, I think, 25,000.
Mhm.
When Comicron
Yeah.
was, reliable, it only had
Mhm.
25,000 of pre-orders. And then the solo book that she had for Bendis, or with Rucka, I
Mhm.
think it only did like 40K. And DC made it returnable to
That's
up
the
the
first mistake right there.
they made it returnable to up the numbers, and it didn't even, and they wanted to be 45K, but it
Mhm.
couldn't even do that much. That shows how um her character can't sustain anything solo. Her fans always go back to the 1960s Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane book. Okay, that was in the 60s. That's when,
Plus,
comics was
plus
a
here's the
big
thing.
booming thing.
Plus,
Hmm.
Britt, what's the title of that series? Superman's
It's still
girlfriend, Jimmy
super.
Olsen. So she is
Right,
denigrated to it.
right. So with you trying to have her as the um for I've seen this say first lady of DC or the queen or whatever. It's like, okay, it's only because she is the love interest, but she, as a first lady, or as you're supposed to have independence, and she does not. If she isn't the love interest, which New 52 showed, she doesn't have a role. She wasn't even a
Yeah.
role even for John. they barely showed much of a mother and son type relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, my thing, what I said in my first anti-Lois Lane video is that, yeah, it's her claim to fame is that she is the Superman love interest. She is the damsel in distress. And honestly, I have a theory that that deep down the fan base wants her to stay that way. As in the case of they don't buy it, they don't buy the book when she gets her own highlights. Because here's the thing, telling the journalistic perspective of a world with superheroes, that could be a really interesting story. It's just DC, it's just for some reason, DC and to a lesser extent, the Superman fans don't want her to be that. They want her to be this type of like damsel character.
Right, right. You see that all the time is that they want to prop her up as like this, as superhero without powers. But within
That's
the
Batman, but
story,
okay.
right, but you have not seen her do anything um very much like what Diana does. Going back
Mm-hmm.
to 170, how it was written that Lois doesn't, as a journalist, as a supposedly this woman empowering or whatever, she just wants to get a story to get her own self rewards, the pulsar or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it's like, what is a pulsar? It does not help humanity. When they say that she is Clark's humanity tie, it doesn't help with anything. It is helping her to succeed, helping her, elevate, move up or whatever. But a pulsar isn't helping a dying child, though. A pulsar isn't saving the world from this bad guy. So,
Yeah,
how is
and
this
here's the thing.
empowering?
Yeah, and in the Charles Sewell Superman and Wonder Woman series. So Taladia is another co-host for Comics League, and we're going through that series issue by issue on his channel. And one of the things he said to me, he goes, "Jared, I'm astounded by how closely this series is also examining Wonder Woman, because when you think about it, in that first arc, she takes on Zod and Feora. In fact, my favorite part of that action scene is when Zod tries to shoot Diana with heat vision. She blocks it with her sword and then presses the blade on Feora's head, burning half her face. I'm like, oh, this is so good, because
Yes,
here's the thing about Diana. She's a warrior and she's as strong and as durable as Clark. Yeah, on the surface, it looks like there's no stakes, but as we saw, and this is another thing that the new 52 did great, there were stakes because the JLA of the new 52 was formed because as a contingency plan against the Justice League, because Steve Trevor and Amanda Waller found out that Superman and Wonder Woman were a couple, and they were afraid of them becoming despots. It's almost like DC was telling the fan base, "Hey, you don't have to be this fearful about if they come together, injustice happens."
right. It was the stakes of this coupling was laid out, the
Mhm.
world reaction to it, the the stakes are even bigger with the threats, with
Mhm.
the gods, like Apollo powering up Zod and Pharaoh. They
Oh
they
yes.
came together. This that makes the threat a whole lot bigger. And then you have the world reaction of, are they for it? Some people was like, yay, they are together. And then there were some that were like, oh no, something's gonna happen. Or even with Lex, he's like, what? Like, then
They're gonna kill us.
seeing,
My favorite is Hal's. My favorite is Hal's. He's got the man's got no respect for dibs.
yeah, that was very, chauvinistic or whatever.
But that's
and
Hal
and then,
Jordan. So, and remember when he
right,
first saw Diana, he goes dibs.
yeah, that was very much Hal Jordan. I don't know why anybody would want Diana even with him if he's such a chauvinistic, kind of
Yeah,
like,
that's a ship
you
I
know.
don't get. I'm like, wait, I'm like, it makes
Well, I
more
think it was
sense than
because
Wonder Bat, but yeah, go ahead.
it was because he's a pilot too. So thinking
Oh,
superficially, thinking a pilot is kind of like that's it. That's basically all you have for that ship.
well, here's the
But
thing. Technically, Superman's a pilot as well since he flies everywhere.
true. Oh, that's a good
There
one.
you go. There you go.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
Also their child. If Clark and Diana had a child, people were like, well, how powerful would this child be? What is gonna happen? Um, you have a child of
Enter Dark
basically
Knight
four
3.
worlds. Right, you have this
Yes,
child of
essentially.
four worlds,
Hmm.
um, that can be like um Dark Knight 3 of introducing Jonathan. He was a baby Buddha, which basically he was like psychic, had like psychic powers and stuff like that. This child can
Hmm.
have powers that even Clark and Diana don't have because you're combining this Kryptonian and Amazon demigoddess together to create something totally new. And like I said, this child of four worlds, you have Earth, with Clark Kent, the Kents. You have Kryptonian, Kal-El. You have Diana with the Amazons. Then you have Diana, demigoddess, with the gods. That is something totally new and so much exploring. And I don't like it also and don't understand why fans say if you put these two characters together, they're going to limit the storytelling. How is that when you're
No.
combining?
Well,
How are you?
first off, arguably one of the stories that of DC that everyone loves is with this pairing. So I'm just like, see, one Kingdom Come. They go, you love that storyline. Dark Knight. Most people like that storyline, but it's like all it does is it places these heroes in new situations. Which guess what? That's called expanding the stories that you could do. I'm pretty sure that's a good thing. I don't know about you Britt, but I think that's a good thing when you're in a publishing
Right.
company.
Yeah, it's expanding the stories. You're bringing something new with the stories that they have now. They are limiting the characters to just Clark with just Metropolis. He's just set there. You're not really expanding. The only expansion that he did have was War World, but even that
Which was
is
so
is
cool.
still it was, but then you pretty much tarnish that when you go back to like the adopted
Mhm.
twins, and now they're like just generic little super kids. That's it. They don't have any type
And
of
then
new
you further
personality.
tarnish it. Then you further tarnish it with the whole costume in the closet incident.
Right. I mean, you wanted to have like this reaction, but that's not the reaction that you would want long term, no. So,
I'm like, that's stupid. So let's get back on topic. But so our next book, hang on, for some reason this isn't working. New Teen Titans. So what would this be the first time that the Teen Titans have their own book in our continuity?
okay. So when I first was looking this up, I saw Teen Titans with just Wonder Girl, um Speedy, Kid Flash,
Mhm.
Robin, and I think that was it. It was just them. Oh,
Mhm.
and Aqualad. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, I
That
didn't
was the
want
original.
Donna. Yeah,
Mhm.
the original. I didn't want Donna just yet because of the new 52 rumor of her being
Mhm.
introduced. So, yeah, so
Yes, I love that
I
rumor.
wanted, right, so I wanted to have the other, um, swap her role for Bumblebee and
Mhm.
Cyborg and the other Teen Titans first. So, yeah, so
You
that's
could even,
basically.
if you wanted to have a Wonder Girl, you could even just put Cassie.
Well, I do like the part of Donna first, then Cassie. I
Mhm.
think she
Okay.
should be the youngest. Yeah,
Mhm.
because she goes with Tim and Connor's generation,
Yeah,
Cassie.
that works. That works. I like that. I understand that. That works. And honestly, here's the thing: when people think of Teen Titans, this is the run that they think of. And fun fact: this was when they were out. DC was outselling the X-Men in the height of. I believe this was in the height of Claremont's popularity. So this was outselling Marvel's best book at this point.
Yeah. So you have this is bringing back the new well, the legacy characters that people clamored for, but you're doing it in a very a more organic way, still having it where the timeline, like, we do have skips, but we are giving a little bit of flashbacks or, something like that, little recaps here and there to show you we are filling in those blanks. So with Robin, he has his miniseries to help guide with. Now all of a sudden, if you think it's all of a sudden he has the Teen Titans, no, you read his mini series or maxi, and you can see him meeting the members of the Teen Titans, and then we expanded and have Starfire too. Even with that too, if you want to have Teen Titans even having little, specials for their individual character.
Yeah, 100%. And so moving on, we also have a couple of choice mini series, and I like this because I like when DC characters that don't get a lot of attention do get a mini or highlight in some way, because it shows that DC is more than just the Justice League and their adjacent characters. So like with first off, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, I love that because one of the my favorite parts of DC is the whole New Gods fourth world like world, if
Yeah.
you will. Because again, particularly if we're dealing with Darkseid being the big bad throughout DC, this can be where we really dig with that. And in fact, what would be really cool for a miniseries is a Darkseid miniseries that shows like him rising to power, how he went from Euxis to Darkseid and all that whole
Oh, I
story.
did
Because I
not
don't
think
think
of
we've
that.
really
That would be cool.
yeah, because here's the thing: Darkseid has never had a miniseries, and I want a Darkseid series so badly because it could just be him conquering other multiverse worlds. You can have cameos from other Earths too, particularly because he can be our Crisis character. Because we could end this with like a sort of Crisis on Infinite Earths like thing, but this time it's Darkseid. He's going throughout the multiverse, wiping out worlds and accumulating energy, and then in his series setting up the Crisis, you could have like occasionally he'll be like on Earth this, and it'll be like famous Earths from DC continuity. So it's like for the Easter egg minded, you could be like, oh, I remember that one, and then at the end of it, he's all powered up, and then to be continued in whatever a Crisis is. So it goes from his creation to his like birth, if you will, to the Crisis.
Wow, that would be very interesting. I did not think of that.
Again, hire me,
Yeah,
DC. Hire me, DC.
yeah. So we have Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, I didn't
Yep.
know was that popular.
Alan
And
Moore made
going with
Swamp Thing what he is
popular.
today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with reading up on that, I was like, that is very interesting, and that
Mm-hmm.
goes with the Justice League Dark. You have
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein, you have Jonah Hex, you have Adam Strange, the Animal Man, Static Shock. Static Shock is a very popular character. Well, at
Yeah,
least with the
do it.
cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Static Shock comic now, but I don't think it's getting any traction much. The milestone type characters,
Mm-mm.
kind of, but it's sort of 50-50, you know. You have Firestorm and Plastic Man. Plastic Man, he's, the comedian or whatever like that.
I love that. I love that character. He's one of my, particularly as a guy that's currently finishing up the Grant Morrison JLA run because he was a big part of that. I love Plastic Man. In fact, even we talked about this on Under Two Capes, though the episode that you were on, when Superman and Wonder Woman make out, and All Star Batman and Robin, he like turns into a giant heart.
To a heart, yeah. I think
Yeah, I
that
love
he
that.
can be he isn't an anti-hero like Deadpool,
Mm-mm.
but for some reason I can see him for the comedic fourth wall type reasons
Mm-hmm.
being the Deadpool of DC, except for instead of Harley,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
I love
with
that.
Harley it's okay, but I feel like her character has now kind of ran a course a little bit, and
To a
trying to
degree, yeah,
make
I agree.
her, yeah, trying to make her this funny fourth wall, type character, pretty much a Deadpool anti-hero. It doesn't actually work too much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think maybe it's because she's ran a course a little bit. So they need someone
Mm-hmm.
new, and I think Plastic Man can probably fit that.
I like that. Now, this next book that you put in here, I did not see coming. It was the point where when I was going through the show notes, I was like, oh, wow, Justice League International. Now, the question is we have to have an homage of Batman punching Guy Gardner in the face.
Okay, so yeah, with everyone that we've introduced now of having their own miniseries or introduced in other books or something like that, giving little bits and pieces of the other Justice Leaguers or, expansion of the Justice League teams. You have Justice League Dark, you have the regular Justice League, even JLA, Justice League of America. Um, Oh, they even had like a Detroit too with Vixen
Mm-hmm.
at some point. You have these little Justice League sections or whatever. So yeah, this have Fire and Ice, Guy Gardner, Martian Manhunter, the Atom, Blue Beetle, um, what's his name? Booster Gold, and Batman. Batman, he does have the Outsiders, but he also have this team too with Martian Manhunter. You know, I don't know much about I haven't read it just yet, but I do know one scene. I think it's from Legends, but um the Justice League is trying to farm or something like that, and Superman goes to Wonder Woman and he is asking her to join the team. I hope I'm saying this story right, but when she's there and Superman is talking to, I think, Ice, and she's having like this flirtation with Superman or whatever, and Ice
Mm-hmm.
she kind of feels disappointed that Superman is giving all his attention to Wonder Woman, and then Maxima sees Diana and she's like,
Oh, God.
worry, and that little thing comes about. So that scene, I really do have to find that issue where that comes from. But that scene pretty much inspired me to want this team to, show up in our
Yes.
redo.
Now that you described it to me, yes, I do. Particularly after Superman and Wonder Woman get together, I do want to see where Maxima is like stewing in it. That would be so good. Oh,
Right.
particularly since they're both warriors that have about the strength of Superman, so you could even do a fight.
Yeah. Um, Maxima is pretty much anti-Diana. So
Mm-hmm.
them clashing, you have the space princess that is basically what some fans are trying to make Diana be. Like Maxima, she wanted to conquer the world. She wanted to have babies, stuff like that. That's pretty much all she wants. Diana is a quote unquote Earth princess, and she's wanting to protect the world. She wants to, yeah, one day get married and have kids, but she is all about world peace and stuff like that. Maxima is more about war and, you know, stuff like that. So those two clashing, basically like a yin and yang type you know, with Clark in the middle would be so much fun and such an interesting storyline.
I would love that. Next, we have the JSA. And I like this because that was one of the things the that kind of pissed me off when I looked into like pre-new 52 lore is how it basically eliminated the JSA. And I'm like, okay, I don't like this because A, there are great characters on the JSA. And B, it works better if they exist because you could say, that the whole idea of forming a Justice League of these younger characters was inspired by the JSA. Hey, back during World War II, a bunch of heroes came together to promote world peace and save people. Why don't we do that now?
Well, yeah. So this um goes with Hawkman because he
Mm-hmm.
was on the JSA.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
the thing about it, the reason why the JSA wasn't in New 52 yet was because post crisis, the team was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the books that people are mad at that New 52 didn't have, it was because the books or the characters were not selling. And DC
Mm-hmm.
had to either bench them or try to figure out a way to revamp them. And I think that's the thing that was miscommunicated and was kind of misinterpreted with DC and the fans. That no, it wasn't that this character or this team was just not existing. It wasn't that. It was just that if post crisis or this team or this character is not selling how we would like them to do, and we have to figure out a way to bring this character back or figure out how to get the sales up because you know that is pretty much the whole dilemma of why New 52 kind of fumbled certain things because of the communication of that. If DC were to have been more honest about that okay, you're asking for these characters or this certain team, we have to let you know that this character or this team was not selling. you know. So if you want this team back,
Gotta be honest.
Yeah, even with Batgirls. Well, I know Cloonan and Conrad, their run wasn't as good, and it all comes down also to the creative team. But you ask for Batgirls, you ask for Cassandra Cain and spoiler back, Stephanie. But
Yeah.
when even when the first issue came out, I think that the numbers weren't as good. It was like just average or something. So yeah, so just because you're asking for these books and DC is giving them to you, again, you have to actually support them. And that's the one thing that the fans pretty much refuse to do. So yeah, with the JSA, we are setting them in the past because it goes with Hawkman's past and telling that story. And that is how you bring them back, is that they are a past group.
Yeah, and that works. And you know what's kind of interesting? They kind of did have the JSA. They just labeled them differently and put them on Earth 2. This was the Tom Taylor Earth 2 book
Oh,
because all those people were the Earth 2 versions of the Justice League.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I
I
think
vote, by the way,
Robinson started.
he started. I vote we keep that book because that was actually pretty solid. I enjoyed that one.
Oh, Earth 2. Yeah, yeah. Even with the Tomorrowverse for the
Yeah,
animation right now, I know that the verse is very dull, but it was a very interesting take though, especially with Clark
it was.
because
Yeah.
he was an orphan. The I like when they do the original takes on the characters. Clark was an orphan. I don't think he did have the Kents, or maybe for a little while, but they passed. Then he became an orphan again.
I think they did
But
pass. Yeah.
he still had more of his that attitude, and Diana was the one that inspired him to become a hero again, or well, become a hero, and he could leap instead of just
Hmm.
straight up fly and stuff like
I
that.
love that.
And also with Steve dying, you know, it pretty much
Yay!
yeah, it pretty much did like a gateway to her having a closer relationship with Clark too. And I loved in the Tomorrowverse that she called him Shakespeare because he's a writer. So that was like a very nice little, endearment sort of thing that she should say more often. So I
And
hope
plus,
that with this
remember
crisis,
those clips from. Those clips from War World has her putting her hand on his chest and calling him my Clark. So I'm like, okay, you're really hinting right here, DC.
right, it's like if they are close, and that pretty much triggered her memory too. So I'm hoping in the crisis movie that it isn't just, those three again, because I mean, first off, they didn't really build up good with for the crisis. So I'm not sure how they can have a crisis movie in the first place, and it's supposed to be like three parts. But it was another thing of saying that all the animation that they've had throughout the years is going to be within the movies. So maybe that could work. Maybe they can have it. But she needs to meet back up with her, with her Clark. And that will be satisfying, at least for the mess of this animation. Give us clips of that.
Yeah. So next up, we have so now we're at year 4, and this is when we start crossing over the characters more than we already have. Because obviously we have the Justice League, we have World's Finest and all that, but this is where it really becomes a priority. Chief among them, yeah, we kind of need this.
Yes. So with um within the first 3 years that we have, is characters are guest starring in, their solos. Prior to that, you have World Finest already, so that's that. But you have the Justice League. Like I said, we have recaps of the teams coming together, duos, partnerships, and everything. So throughout the first 3 years, we are seeing Clark and Diana getting closer. You have even a little arc within the Justice League, just like how it was that little arc of New 52 Justice League of them, getting together, but they don't kiss yet. I think that even though it was issue 12 and they did a time skip, we still were not able to see them actually become closer. And that was the thing
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
we should have saw too within their own book, but without the crossovers of that too. We should have saw all that, build up a little bit more. And so with this, now we have an accumulation of them guest starring in each other's books and everything. And now we have a big crossover of their books, and we're revamping or redoing um volume one of their solo book, of their joint book.
Yeah, because
And you
I
bring
would
in,
say because I don't think it's I don't think that book really needs to be changed at all. I think that at least volume 1 is perfect.
yeah, so volume one is basically the crossover, but you
Hmm.
expand it. So you
Hmm.
have also, I wouldn't, with the Amazons, maybe keep the curse of them turning into snakes for a little bit, but then they revert back. I really would have wanted them to revert back, and especially Hippolyta to meet Clark.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say, yeah.
yeah, so we go to the crossover, and you have the Amazons and the gods and Zod and Feora come and it's just an all-out war with them.
Oh,
That's
yes,
expanding
because I'm
to
picturing this in my head. It kind of reminds me a little bit of in Dark Knight 3 when it's the Amazons versus the Kryptonians.
yes,
That's the scale I can imagine here. And I'm like,
yes.
by the way, am I the only one that is a little surprised that DC has never done an event where where the Greek gods are jealous of the love and adoration that the Justice League get, and they go to war with the Justice League to supplant them? Why hasn't that ever happened before?
But I mean, the only thing
As
that
far as I
they've
know.
done is have Diana, they have Diana like talk about the league and um pretty much compare them as gods, but yeah, never had an actual storyline of that. And again,
Because that
they
would be
limit to
epic.
right, they limit the storytelling. You know, the
Hmm.
gods are now they're either non-existent or they're animal. Rebirth, they had them as like Disney animals. Um, re
Oh God,
yeah,
that's what that was. I was wondering why those.
yeah.
I thought they were trying to harken back to when Diana could talk to animals. I didn't know those were supposed to be the gods. Oh gosh,
Well, it was her talking to animals a little bit, but no, that was the gods.
that's so
Disney animal.
stupid.
It's
Like,
really
what?
childish.
That's too Disney at that point. I'm like, that
Right.
is the type of Silver Age stuff that we would see in a time period where Superman could drag planets on a solar system, drag a solar
Right.
system worth of planets on a chain. I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah. It was a little bit too much with the animals, but if they were, human, and especially the designs that they had in the 52
Hmm.
would really be, something. Would have really liked
Hmm.
that storyline. Um, so you also have, like you said earlier, about Shazam too, within this war, that this crossover basically expands to the Justice League too. That it is
Hmm.
centered around Superman and Wonder Woman, but it expands more. You have your
Hmm.
first big line wide event with the gods versus the Amazon, with Zod and Farah, with the Justice League. And this is where that crossover comes from, that we've talked about.
Well, plus here's the thing. Think about how that the awkward position that puts Diana and the Amazons if they have to fight against the gods to protect humanity. That's a really great story to tell that, as far as I know, hasn't been done with the Amazons or Diana. And think about it this way, add in the relationship. Diana now has to choose between her family and her boyfriend.
Right.
There
And
you go.
it's also the what was established within the New 52 was Diana and Clark. They don't have an established, like, they don't belong to either. They aren't mortal and they aren't gods, and that line would be basically like the mantra of this whole crossover, is that Clark and Diana are stuck in the middle, especially Diana, that she isn't a god, but she feels like she has sort of an attachment there. But she is an Amazon too, but at the same time, sometimes the Amazons don't make her feel quite at home either. So yeah, she does have to choose, and then she has her new home and building a relationship with Clark too. And it's like she has to choose between the three, and how does she pull it all together? you know. So yeah, that will, and I don't think we even had a Wonder Woman event either. And this will be
No, we didn't.
mainly her event.
Yeah, 100%. Because the way I was gonna, because I have this idea for a fanfic that I might do one day to take inspiration from you, Britt, where where the Justice League lose. So it's kind of like in the Zack Snyder Nightmare timeline like idea. Like each of the Justice Leaguers are placed in like areas that would completely depower them. Like Superman is put in Tartarus because there is no sun there. and Wonder Woman is
Wow.
chained on Olympus, and the only person that could save them all, I'm not going to make it Batman because that's the stereotypical DC response. I would have it be
Right.
Shazam. Like
Oh,
he has
wow.
to
Yeah.
he has to round up the league and say, no, if we have to do this because they're making a mockery of what we stand for.
That would be great. That would be, especially for Shazam or Billy Batson, because he
Mm-hmm.
is growing up as a teenager and he's given this responsibility as a hero, and he basically has to grow up faster. And that would be a very challenging story for him as a teen and a hero. Yeah, that is very good.
And the one of the battles in this fake, I had this idea. So Diana and Wonder Woman, I mean Diana and Clark are either I'm deciding if they aren't a couple but want to be one, or they are. But either way, this works. So Diana is like going up against Zeus, and she's pissed off because of what they did to Clark. Because Clark, essentially, because he's deprived of the sun, when they find him, he's basically the Flashpoint Superman in terms of appearance. Like he's very gaunt, very thin, and all that because he doesn't have access to the sun again. So what I
Yeah,
thought. So you remember that new 52 plot line where she has to wear the gauntlets in order to suppress her powers? Well, she
yeah.
takes them off, cracks her knuckles, her eyes go white, and go, no more holding back, and she beats the crap out of Zeus.
Wow. That is, I would have liked seeing, especially with New 52 Zeus, because I mean, he's a deadbeat. He's a
Yeah, he
deadbeat
is.
dad. He's he was a coward, but we never saw his raw power of a battle. And that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that we should have seen, especially either against Diana or against Clark. We should have seen that. Or
Well,
or
plus here's
just
the thing.
a
Also, I could imagine him shooting her with lightning, being his daughter. She just absorbs it.
right, just like how Apollo shot the
Yeah,
sunbeam with Clark. And it's like
at Clark,
it's
and
like,
you
do
can
you
homage
know?
to that. You can homage to that, and what Diana goes, you don't know that much about your own daughter, do you?
Right. It's like you're trying to, beat me because of course, as Zeus, as the king, he wants to have everyone at his feet, even his daughter if she goes against him. And to see her take his power and use it against him will be just something so cool.
He'd be like, "Oh no, what?" I could imagine Morgan Freeman in the background going, "It was at that point Zeus knew he messed up." So that would be the way I would go with that. So
Right.
moving on, but so year five. So yeah, so we get that event. So like after that, in the aftermath, it's really that it looks to me. It's really, and this is harkening back, by the way, to episode 1 of this podcast. We talked about Diana and Clark possibly traveling the world together, saving lives and stuff. So I kind of enjoyed that. That's cool.
Yes, once the whole event is over, everyone is now in the loving mode, It's basically like everyone is
Well, because what you could do
has
with it, because what you could do with it is have it where a lot of these couples were thinking of getting together but didn't. But it's that whole thing. You don't know how much you care about someone until you almost lose them.
yes, that's basically what that is. Um Within the end of the storyline is Clark and Diana aren't they've gone through just like how they did with Power Couple Volume 1. They go through all of this, and your ending is Clark and Diana confessing that they love each other, that they've gone through all this within, um, yeah, this is year 4, going into year 5. We've became a partnership, so now it's I'm going to tell my feelings to you, especially if they are at a moment of like about to die sort of thing too,
Yes,
like
there
how
you
they
go.
did. Yeah, it's like that. So now that they came back from that, like I said, the aftermath, it is bringing the couples, and you have Superman and Wonder Woman actually have a book, and
Oh yeah, yeah. Hmm.
this is how you bring in the book is now you have Clark Kent and Diana Prince. They are doing reporter and ambassador. Bring though their occupations together. And really it is so simple, and it's something that is like so right in your face to have that dynamic. You have a reporter and an ambassador traveling the world together. Diana is speaking, Diana is um, doing charity work. Clark is writing it down. He's, interviewing. Especially interviewing Diana, he's interviewing
Yeah.
people that she's helped, interviewing, people that need help. And he's
I could
writing
imagine,
or
by the
just,
way, I could imagine Clark. It's really funny. Lois asked Clark, "How do you always get the exclusive interview with Ambassador Prince?" And Clark's like, "No reason."
right, right. I mean, they're still very much professional. It's not,
Hmm.
um, and the thing is, it wouldn't be unethical because their relationship as well, Lois pretty much wouldn't question it because their relationship, I can see it more open, especially as reporter and ambassador, because they are a team within that
Hmm.
they can be actually more open as Clark and Diana than Superman and Wonder Woman. Change that. Clark and Diana have an open relationship to the world of their traveling, but Superman and Wonder Woman is more closed because it's such a, even though it is known that they're together, it's still very closed off, because of
Hmm.
the scale of it. And that is something that they learn to balance out. And that's something that
Hmm.
I like to write within my story too, is that Clark Kent and Diana Prince do have an open relationship of knowing that they are together, that they do travel, that they do, he does have exclusive interviews with, a little something more to it too. And, but as Superman and Wonder Woman, because they don't want their relationship to be like the main focus when they're trying to um fight off, these big evil things, and have the world just so in their business like a gossip, thing,
Yeah.
that does give them more of a struggle.
Yeah.
So you
Exactly.
have that. So you do
Mhm.
have that with their with that relationship. Then you have Black Canary and Green Arrow. Now this will be an equal book because Green Arrow, again with the double standards of Black Canary is now a supporting character for Green Arrow. No, it would be equal to, they are now a
What you could
couple
do,
in.
you call their book Green and Black.
Oh, that's neat. Black and green, green and black.
Mhm.
The
Either way, but yes, it should be more of an equal thing, and like it's essentially what Superman and what we apply the Superman Wonder Woman formula for the Charles Sewell book, but apply it to all these other couples because
other couples.
that was the best way to do it. Because yeah, you would expect, because here's the thing: Lois is denigrated to being Superman's wife, and that's the way she is. Wonder Woman, no, if you, she was way more than Clark's girlfriend in that book. In fact, she almost killed him in the Doomsday arc. Spoiler alert for those people that are following along for the first time with the Teladia stream. But the point is, she very much was like her own character even throughout that book, and that's the way you have to do it now.
Yeah, I mean that, if you want equal. Well, first, Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship is always about equality. So
Yeah.
that standard is basically set. And that's the thing that Tomasi he complained about was that Diana, you can't put her in the background, is that she demands spotlight. Well, duh, you know.
Well, duh,
But
she's
when
Wonder
you
Woman. What are you talking about?
Right, but when you read Rebirth, you see that Lois did not have a much of a role, not even in John's life. She was just the homemaker housewife. She was a glorified housewife that baked pies. The only big like moment that she had was the hell bat suit, but really, what did she do? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what it's not even. And I also saw a lot of comments too on Twitter that basically admitted that a lot of the Rebirth um, books, they don't have any memorable moments. Like, you don't really remember anything from the Superman Tomasi Rebirth book, except for the 4th of July and issue 7 when they go to the carnival. But that's because the carnival was a one thing, trying to have fun. The 4th of July thing was like a Wikipedia reading of American history that kind of like pissed people off. So, you know,
Oh boy.
that sort of thing. Jargon,
And it's also the part I remember is him conveniently not showing up when the Anti-Monitor invaded. That's what I remember of that.
you would not let that go. Yeah,
No, I'm not letting
that
that go because he's Superman. He's supposed to get involved here.
that is true. But Rebirth and Convergence is all revisionism, and it's basically like
Mm-hmm.
they try it's fans like you and I that will question something, poke holes and stuff because it doesn't make sense. It's a big plot hole within the Convergence Rebirth whole thing, especially with John, all of this. And that is why DC has done the whole everything is canon, because everything is canon still doesn't make any sense, but it
Wonder
makes
Woman.
sense to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Which of Wonder Woman's origins is canon then? Oh, they're all canon. So she's made from clay, but is also the biological daughter of Zeus. That makes
Zeus.
sense.
She debuted in World War II, but somehow she's also in the modern day, and she was a fish out of water modern day though. So are you telling me that like she just forgot man's world or something? That whole thing within her time of
Yeah,
that,
it
or
just. Mhm.
when did she go back? And how is Steve and Etta alive?
I
They
know.
are they immortal too? Yeah, it's a lot of questions
Doesn't
within
make
that.
sense.
Um,
By the way,
going back
I
to
just
the
got an
uh-huh.
idea. Yeah, go back to. I just got an idea for another couple that could be an interesting book is Aquaman and Mera, because you can do the whole ruling Atlantis thing and turn it into like a Game of Thrones like story, but with Aquaman and Mera and them having to navigate his surface like a life, his life in the Justice League, her being more of the warrior, him trying to be more the peacemaker, and then them trying to like have a relationship and also deal with like the pressure of being kings, because that's what the Rebirth Aquaman series did so well, because you had all of that working together in like some epic tale.
Wow. Yeah, you know, Aquaman and Mira's, or Arthur and Mira's relationship pretty much mirrors Clark and Diana's relationship,
Actually, yes.
because
In fact, they did a double date.
yeah. So, and yeah, within this, they do. I prefer Clark and Diana have double dates with Arthur and Mira,
Mm-hmm.
because with Batcat, I mean, I can sort of see them as friends in a sense, but not really. It's not so much as a double date kind of thing. Like how when I'm writing it, it's sort of like a I mention it, but it's not really an ongoing thing, But when I have Arthur and Mira within the stories, Mira is basically Diana's sounding board. She's her best friend within the story. And
Which
with
makes sense.
marriage,
It makes sense because
yeah,
they're both royalty, so she understands better than a lot of DC females Diana's perspective.
yeah, yeah. And then you have Arthur, who is a man of two worlds, just like Clark. He is a man of sea and a man of land. Clark, a man of space and a man of earth. And these two are coming together, you know, and with Arthur married to Mira, which mirrors Diana, he can give Clark advice, on how to deal with a marriage, or whatever with Diana. So yeah, that comes together too.
The question is, I have a question for you, Britt. Have you ever considered doing writing a story about Aquaman and Mera?
I have. I have.
Because I think
The
you
only
could do
thing is
a really good one.
I have, and the only thing is um pretty much as a solo, not right now, but that is why I try to integrate them within
Hmm.
Clark and
That
Diana's
works.
stories.
That works. I like
Um,
it. And plus, again, it goes back to I like the way you write. You write that dynamic because that issue of Superman and Wonder Woman was dope because again, it goes into one of my favorite scenes is when Clark is when Aquaman turns to Clark and goes, I was thinking about our first battle with Darkseid, and then Mara goes, well, it's time for the men to talk about war. Let's go do girl stuff over here.
yeah, and then that is also when Diana says she she likes Clark's eyes because
Hmm.
it's something about his soul, and that really um speaks more about how their relationship is so much deeper than how people think that they are just strong man and woman. No, it's not
Hmm.
about their strength or power. It is Diana always goes back to talking about Clark's soul. Even when in another story, I think Spectre or something like that, that she wraps the lasso around him and she says, combine our souls together and let's be as one.
Yeah.
It's always a soul connection with them. And that's emphasized on with that. So, oh, definitely within the crossovers, we have Aquaman Mira with Clark and Diana, just like they did have a little crossover with Aquaman and Diana. And I think within that little crossover at the end, um, Arthur and Diana is talking, and Diana gets like a message, and the seagull is right there, like biggest day, and it's like, well, I gotta go because Clark is calling me. I'll show you
Mhm.
that. If you haven't seen that page, I'll send it to you. But that was
Or what you
really
could
cute.
do, well, here's a story that you could do. And first off, what we could do from a publishing perspective is do the concept is the Clois Batcat double date that Tom King did, but with Aquaman and Mera and Superman and Wonder Woman. What we could also do is this a story that comes to mind for me that I would do is when so Clark is they've dated for like a couple of years, Clark and Diana. So they're at that stage, and Clark is considering proposing. But first off, he goes through all of the doubts he normally does with the I'm not sure I'm good enough for a princess or something like that. And he goes to Arthur for advice, and he goes, hey, listen, man, how do I do this? Or like, am I sure I really should do this? And Arthur's like, hey, listen, I'm just the son of a lighthouse keeper, and she's a princess, dude. That doesn't matter with Mara, and I get the feeling it doesn't matter with Diana. So, dude, just go for it. And I get the feeling that she feels the same way about you. And then conversely, you have Diana and Mara having the marriage conversation, but obviously about Clark and Arthur. So you establish that both of them are like you said before, sounding boards for our two heroes.
Yeah, that will be there. I mean, we have um the most natural organic storytelling right here. And the thing is, we are using the stories that was already there, and we're just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like putting fleshing it out a little bit more, putting more detail, more, heart within it. But it was right there. It was right there to
Yeah.
explore, but DC just cut it off. You had
Yeah.
Arthur, Mira, Diana, and Clark, that whole crossover double date thing. You did have that, and you could have explored and expanded more to that. You did have the crossover with the gods and all of that, but you had the Amazons as snakes. You could have brought them back to have it. So yeah, all of this is was right there with DC. They just did not um capitalize on it. So we have also going back to the couples, we do have Batman and Catwoman. And the thing is, with Catwoman, she's always had her own book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she she actually had her own solo more than Lois has. So she
Yeah.
is she is very much more of an equal to Batman. And she does help him, like with what they have with Gotham War, you can
Stupid.
see you can see that Bruce and Selena, they want the good with Gotham. They love Gotham. They are both mentally, emotionally fragile, but their love of Gotham, their city, is what bring them together. And you make that bond stronger with, yeah, Selena is a thief, but she doesn't steal from the poor, she steals from the rich. Bruce, he is rich, but he doesn't use his riches in a sense of being like a spoiled, you know,
Mm-hmm.
guy. The billionaire playboy persona is just that, a persona. It's not really him. So you
It's an
can
act.
combine, yeah, you can combine Selena and Bruce together, even though it's compare a little contrast here and there, a little similarities here and there, but it fits together, and that
Yeah.
needs to be explored.
Yeah. The thing about the reason why Catwoman works more for Batman is because she challenges his very black and white view on crime, because she started getting into crime because she was desperate. It wasn't like she was like a bad person or anything like that. And then she does, and then he basically encourages her to seek out a better way, a better way of achieving her goal, because yeah, you're right, they both want Gotham to, they both want Gotham to heal and be a better city. It's just he shows her a more way toward the light on how to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they can have this these couples prosper, but they want the superficial, the CW teeny,
Oh
teen
god.
type drama that's so unnecessary, especially with Gotham War. I I think what they're trying to do with Batman is turn him into basically like make him jump off the edge of his insanity of trying to bring justice or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
stop all crime, but it's messing up him mentally even more so. And Selena isn't making it any better, but she is supposed to make it better. Just because she is a thief, like I said, she doesn't steal from the rich. She doesn't steal from the poor. She steals from the rich to take to the poor. She's basically like Robin Hood, you know, in a sense, and that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, and then
With
the other couple that you could actually work really well in this would be Hal Jordan and Carol Ferris, and that she encourages him to see some of the playboyness and like be a more like take things more seriously. And then he also
Seriously.
encourages her to like, yeah, he also encourages her to like have more fun and stuff. So you have that contrast. Plus, they're both lanterns, so it's kind of like Superman and Wonder Woman in that they're both heroes, and they both heroes in practically the exact same like part of DC. So they both understand what the other one goes through and all that.
Right. A lot of these couples that we have, true power couples, with Lois and Clark, the only thing that they have is being reporters. You know, I don't really see anything else. They say about the humanity thing, but Clark has his humanity. You know, he
He was
was
raised by
Superman before.
humans.
Right. So trying to have her as an equal or whatever, it doesn't work. You just saying that they're reporters. But when you say they are reporters, they also say that, well, she's a better reporter than he is, because she has a pulser. You know, keep going about these rewards, but it still doesn't help the world. You know, it helps her, but not the world. But with
Well, the
Clark
other
and Diana,
thing
they have. Mhm.
the other thing is that okay, she's just great reporter. How come it took her so long to figure out that Clark Kent is Superman?
Right, if she was so close to him, but they make excuses about his glasses change his eye color or something like that, or because his mannerisms. But the thing is, Diana, even without the lasso, she could tell the difference. You know, there was in one where it's like, I know that it's you, you know. Um, so with the compare and contrast type thing, Clark and Diana's relationship is so much deeper than just being superheroes, and or just, you know, how they want to say they Clark and Lois are reporters. Clark and Diana are outsiders. They are on a different spectrum of the immigrant and the refugee. And that's the main thing of what resonates with me, um, as a woman of color too, with these characters, is that they have the outsider perspective of
Mhm.
how society would look at you. You know, if you want to stand out, you know, society doesn't want you to, but you have to have the confidence within yourself to do so. And that is what Diana represents. She represents being yourself and never hiding who you are, honoring your culture, honoring, um, you know, celebrating who your heritage and being grateful for that. And that's what, you know, speaks to me with them as a couple too. But when I see Lois and Clark, Clark hides. He wants to be normal. He wants to they want to strip him away from his Kryptonian heritage and stuff. And that's something that's like, oh, so what you're telling a child, you know, that's trying to look up to Superman, is that no, you can't be who you are. You have to be what society would accept. And that is what Superman and Wonder Woman fight against, is the limitations of society. And
Yeah,
that's when you
abandoning
bring
your
in,
uniqueness.
right, and that's when you bring in even Apollo and Midnighter. And that brings
Mhm.
in the authority too. But you have representation. New 52 did have the right idea of representation from right off the bat. They
Jessica
did,
Cruz.
yeah, they did have, like, when they first started, they did have Oscar characters have their own ongoings. You know, it just, the books didn't last long, because
Yeah.
by issue six, by issue six, the books did dwindle fast, because again, you have the fans who asked for these books, but they weren't supporting them. So
Hmm.
DC, they had to cancel them fast, only because they weren't getting the support, and that's on the fans. So you have, now that so many people are gravitating to diversity and more accepting. Now you have Apollo and Midnighter, you have the LGBT Q characters to focus on. And then also on the magical side, and that has been within Zatanna's book and Justice League Dark, you have Zatanna and Constantine as the magical power couple.
And there you go. Yeah, exactly. And to go off of that, remember, it's like take Jessica Cruz for example. That's an example of when they did diversity right, because they didn't make her a carbon copy of Hal Jordan, which is the issue I see with a lot of writers that try and bring in diversity, is they make them just a blank version of this character. With
Of
Jessica
this character,
Cruz,
yeah.
yeah, with Jessica Cruz, you had that whole idea about how she's agoraphobic, but all of a sudden she's given this ring that's run on willpower, and you have to be without fear to, you have to have the ability to overcome great fear. And she even said it. I'm afraid to leave my house most days, and now I'm supposed to be this fearless warrior.
Yeah, that is very good. And she spoke to a lot of people why, I mean, she has been in a lot of other media, which is very good, but
Yes.
she isn't very much in comics right now. And that's very, you know, with Rebirth and right now, they wanted to go back to basics, meat and potatoes of just, again, post crisis, stripped down, watered down even more so. So your diversity, they're trying to put diversity in now, but you can tell that it's very superficial. It's very surface level, very just more of a gimmick. Like John Kent. John, he is just a carbon copy of Clark, but Tom Taylor actually said it that he was supposed to be bisexual. He has a boyfriend, but it was a gimmick. It was a publicity stunt, to have it all over the internet, news like that. It came out much faster than it was supposed to. And it's like, wow, y'all, you all are actually admitting that this was basically for brownie points.
I appreciate your
But
honesty,
now,
but okay.
right. Um, but yeah, him being bisexual, that's the only thing that makes him quote unquote unique.
Yeah.
But it's really not, because his boyfriend is a reporter too. And John is now supposed to be a
Well,
reporter. So he
it gets
isn't,
worse.
there's no,
It gets worse. His boyfriend may or may not be part of a domestic terrorist organization, and now his boyfriend works for, basically, so what they established in Dawn of DC is that John Henry Iron Steel has his own company called Steelworks. Jay works for Steelworks. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
but it's just I'm not a big fan of it.
Even the Steelworks book, I saw, well, again, that those charts aren't reliable, but um, that book wasn't really, even with the ranking, it wasn't really doing that good anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trying to have the boyfriend in, you are limiting again, because you only putting him within that family of family business or whatever, that group supporting cast or whatever, and he has nothing else. He has powers like Kitty Pryde or something like that, but he doesn't really stand out. You know, all of that just doesn't work. Um, you have Connor. Connor is, he would have been unique. He is unique, but they are stuck with having him still as a teenager, actually younger than John now, in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and he's stuck with his 90s attire, and but recently
The
he's had like
expendas.
a red
That
strip
red
on his
thing
hair.
was the stupidest thing in the world. I'm like, why? Why?
I think it's to different like give him a distinct look from John, because they look so much alike. I mean, he already
Mm-hmm.
has the 90s costume on, but with them having the S jackets or whatever, him and him and John look exactly alike, so they gave him a red streak for that.
That's
And
so
which
dumb.
is, yeah. Kara, I guess she is doing her own thing, but they brought in Power Girl and they changed her name, but even she is, you know, I guess overall, the families, they are trying to make them like the Bat family, with the Bat family and the
Mm-hmm.
Robins. They all are Robins, but they have a distinct story, they have a distinct look. With Superman's family, they are redundant. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the only
They shouldn't be, but they are.
I will only have Kara and Connor. Those two have distinct origins of Kara being the cousin, Connor being the clone with Lex. That's a story of his own. John, he is just a carbon copy of Clark. Just because his mother is Lois, he doesn't even have any type of trace of Lois or anything like that. He doesn't supposed to exist because Kryptonian DNA and human DNA doesn't even supposed to mix. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't really have a story. His whole origin was changed like three times for him to make sense within continuity right now, and it still doesn't make any sense. With Wonder Woman, the Wonder Girls do have um distinct backgrounds, and that's good. They can work, except for Trinity. She is very bland. Well, she's supposed to be Diana's daughter, but she's very bland. She doesn't fit because they don't have an established. Diana doesn't have a really solid relationship with the other Wonder Girls, especially Yara. I mean, Yara, they just introduced her, and she's basically pushed aside for a daughter
It
that
seems
just randomly comes up.
it seems that whenever the fan base is excited about a character, in Yara's case, DC just goes, "Okay, the fan base likes her, throw her away," because the fan
And
base was
that's
really
basically what
excited for Yara.
the only thing that kind of ruined Yara was because they didn't have a Brazilian writer,
Ah.
and her backstory, it was controversial with how they disrespected the the heritage, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you are making these characters, especially with distinctive cultures, you were supposed to, first of all, have respect and honor. You don't supposed to go with stereotypes, especially stereotypes that just might be the stereotypes that that specific culture does not like. And that's what they went
Mm-hmm.
for because they didn't do enough research and they didn't find a find a Brazilian writer to really, you know, explore and flesh her out, as a character. But she had so much potential, especially with her design and everything like that. But now her design was given to Trinity. With with Trinity, I mean, her name first, when you think of Trinity, you think of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So that already is bad. Her name being Lizzie, I just don't see Diana. No, her name is Lizzie Marston Prince. First of all, Marston is too on the nose. Where would that even come from in DC canon? Like, nobody would know who Marston is unless you
Mm-hmm.
have a character named that. So why would she have that name? And then
Mm-hmm.
Prince, of course, is Diana Prince, but still, it just shows that she pretty much doesn't have a father or anything like that. Even though that's supposed to be a mystery within it. But yeah, her introduction wasn't good. She's supposed to have like this stereotypical teenage attitude, but it's so off-putting. And then like her only tie is to complete the biological kids trinity and have a
Yeah, and
relationship with.
if that's your
Go ahead.
reason for, yeah, if that's your reason for creating this character, instead of like, oh, I could tell a pretty good story about that, and so your reason for it is, okay, so Batman has a kid, Superman has a kid, Wonder Woman should have a kid. That is supremely forced. I'm sorry, that's just really forced.
Right. And also, Damien and John is like 40 years old. When she is 19 and they are 40, that is
No,
so weird.
I think they're like 30s, early 30s, I think, around that time.
But John is 20
Well,
now, I think. So
and
when she's
also
20,
Kryptonian age, so
well, yeah, but he, you want still, even if they are in their 30s, she's still a 19-year-old girl. Like that's very weird. She is kind of like a decade and a half or whatever of a generation of a generational gap, and she doesn't fit that generation at all. So it's best that I think even Aquaman still has his daughter and she's a baby still after like 2 years. So she fits more with Aquaman's daughter than Damien and John. But they want to have the Trinity, like new generation Trinity, and I pretty much pretty sure that she won't last but until like Tom King finishes his run, because she just trying to have this new age Trinity when the Trinity, how we said last week, that they don't even have a relationship. So how can their kids have one,
yeah, I
to
guess.
establish this?
And we can also answer that. Actually, that would be a great topic for a future episode of Super Wonder Legacy. So we'll consider that. So I think that's a good place to leave it, Britt. We got a lot of great information out there, a lot of great like suggestions for DC. My overall like thoughts of this week are: DC, please hire us. We will fix your company. I won't even take pay
Exactly.
for it. I will do it. I'll consider it community
Well, like,
service.
we'll take a little pay, especially if if it actually does bring in some
Okay.
some business.
Okay. You
Yeah,
know
we'll
what?
we'll get some
Forget what I
pay with
said
that.
previously. Someone added out what I said previously. Yes, we will take pay, but we
Yep.
will. In other words, trust me, we will be worth our salt. But drop
Yep.
below, by like, comment, subscribe. Let us know below how you would fix the new 52 and how you would have handled this era of DC. So, Britt, do you have any teases for us on any future stories?
Yes. So, as I told you earlier, we do have the son-in-law, father-son-in-law with Cal and Zeus, and I do have more tonight one shots coming up, and a small little special of with a few artworks that I've seen done and inspired by. So I do have little short stories within those that will actually be posted on my Tumblr instead of fan fiction or um, archive. They will be posted on the Tumblr instead.
Sweet. Link me, and I will check those out.
I sure will.
So, heck yeah. And anything else, or is that it?
That will be all. Yeah.
Okay. So, in terms of Comics League, got a lot of great content for you. So we talked about Casper the Friendly Ghost today. That was interesting. And
Oh,
yeah, next week for movie night, we're doing it on a Friday night because Friday the 13th, and we're talking about Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham. That movie is awesome. All right, Britt. So, have you seen Casper?
yes, I have. I actually do like that movie.
there are some parts of it that don't really age well, but I love how, by the way,
Yeah,
the
it's true.
I love I love how the machine to revive people from the dead is called Lazarus. So I was saying about how actually Casper's dad was actually one of the lives of Ra's al Ghul, and he was creating the Lazarus. Because what I like to do with these movies, I like to find some way to make them DC movies, even if it's really
Yeah.
tangent. Like my idea is that Miguel from Cobra Kai is actually Jaime Reyes. It's just what happens that he's in the witness protection program.
Wow.
So that
Those
somehow,
are
and we made
interesting
it
ideas.
where Gal Gadot is actually Wonder Woman even throughout the Fast and the Furious movies, and that explains her surviving all those stunts. And then
Survive.
in Heart of Stone, her spy movie, she is actually Wonder Woman at that point. It's just that no, actually, what happens is that for Fast and the Furious, so when she dies, it's because that's when the dark side invasion happens in Justice League. So she has to go deal with that. And now that she's done with that, she comes back here and is Giselle again. And then now she's also being Rachel Stone in Heart of Stone. So she's really she's doing the whole double life, but she's really Diana Prince. Yes, I go really elaborate with
Wow. Wow, that is so
this.
creative though.
That's how much of a I like to create cinematic universes based on one actor's like movies. It's kind of a fun little
Movie.
thought experiment. Yeah.
That's good.
So on that note,
Good.
I appreciate that. So on that note, everyone, stay heroic, and we'll be sure to see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.